Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the CBI's SME Webinar. Really pleased to see you on a Thursday morning, a new time and a new day of the week for us. Do give us feedback if this works better for you or less well. For those of you I've yet to meet, my name is Deborah Fraser and I'm Director for Regions here at the CBI. Now, today's topic, we're looking at how we best support young people as we learn to live with COVID-19. And we're joined by a number of speakers. Now, unfortunately, you can't see all our speakers because we've been having some tech problems this end. So we've got two of our speakers visible, and we've got three they're going to become voices coming into the conversation. So our speakers today is Alice Grimes, who you can see, who's from the CBI's Employment and Skills team. We've got Katie Farrington from DWP, who will be a voice coming in. We've got James Uffindell, who's the CEO of Bright Network, and you can see James. Anna Fraser, Anna, I have to say, great name. It's just spelt a little bit incorrectly. She puts a Z rather than an S, who's Head of Employee Engagement at the Careers and Enterprise Company. And we've got Josh Adcock, who's Apprentice and Policy Researcher at the Youth Employment UK. Now, in terms of today's format, we haven't changed. It's just the date and the time that we've changed. We will hear from each of our 5 speakers in turn, after which we will hand things over to you. And I can see we've already got questions coming in. Jenny, just to assure you, we've already got that question covered because that's coming hot and fast, but we'll come back to that later. Do go to your chat box and type in questions, and I will ping them to the relevant speakers and ask them to respond. If we're not able to respond, and those of you who are regular attendees know that we're not always able to respond or we just run out of time, Diane in the background is very good at making sure we give the speakers and the panelists homework, and we will come back to you on a one-to-one basis with those answers. The session will also be written up and shared on our website, so you can go there and some of the notes will be included. So that's probably enough from me for now. I will first of all like to hand over to Alice, who will give a bit of a CBI update before we hand over to Katie at DWP. Over to you, Alice.
Great, thanks Debs, and good morning everyone, thank you for joining. So as Debs mentioned, I'm a Senior Policy Advisor in the People and Skills team here at the CBI, and we have an incredibly interesting lineup of speakers with us today, so I don't really want to take up too much time, but what I do want to do is provide a really brief summary of what the CBI has been working on around the issue of youth unemployment, and then I think at the end we'll touch on ways that you might want to get involved too. So I guess as a bit of context, when lockdown began back in March, many of our members were of course really uncertain about the future, and many were facing really critical business decisions. But one of the main pieces of feedback we were receiving from across the board from some of our large members and SMEs too was concern among employees about the impacts of young people and the impacts on them kind of longer term, and a recognition that they will be among those most likely to be furloughed or perhaps work in sectors which are kind of hardest hit. So even amongst all the kind of uncertainty, a really resounding message that we want to do something if we can to support young people during this time. So what do we do? So very early on we set up a dedicated Youth Employability Task Force, which was designed to help us shape and steer some of our messaging to government and kind of focus on what our priorities should be. We had an overwhelming response to the task force, which has kind of grown and grown and grown. Delegates include a mixture of businesses and training providers, and we had our first meeting back in July, where we discussed the current situation, potential opportunities around apprenticeships and traineeships, and other ideas for supporting youth employment, including the benefits of a new job creation scheme, for example. And so then we got the Chancellor's statement back in July, if you remember that, and the announcement of a new Kickstart scheme to support young people at risk of long-term and scarring and impacts from the crisis. So to support DWP with the design of the scheme, we hosted 3 sessions with CBI members throughout August. They had the opportunity to hear from a DWP representative and feedback on the scheme, what it might mean for their business, and kind of pose any questions too. And then of course yesterday we saw the scheme was officially launched, and obviously I look forward to hearing more from Katie, who's with us today, on how employers can get involved in that and help answer some of your questions. But just to kind of finally, more broadly, we're continuing to kind of focus on this area into the autumn, focus on job creation, the support for apprenticeships and traineeships, alongside other opportunities for employer engagement like T-levels, which are starting this month. And that's not forgetting other work we've been doing with members around business engagement with schools and the need for high quality careers advice, because that hasn't gone away either. So clearly lots of scope for employers to get involved in education and young people, and we'll cover some of this at the end. But I think just for now I'll leave it there, so we're able to hear from the rest of our speakers and not take up too much time. Thank you.
Thanks, Alice. That's really helpful. And apologies, anyone. I've got new headset, and it's more technical than my old one. Right. So we're going to hand over to Katie, who's Director of Universal Credit and Employment at DWP, and she's going to give us a bit of an overview in terms of government initiatives. And I know there's questions, Katie, that have come in already for you regarding minimum number of placements on the Kickstart scheme, and that would be quite. Perhaps you could touch on that as well during your presentation. That would be great, because I know that's very much a hot topic amongst the SME community. So Katie, over to you.
Great, thank you, and I'm really pleased to be here. And Alice, I should say thank you to you and also to your colleague Matthew for all the help and advice we have had from the CBI as we've designed and launched the Kickstart scheme. And I think that's quite an important conversation that we want to keep happening, and I'm very keen to have your feedback as the scheme rolls out, how it's landing, and anything that seems to be an unhelpful barrier that we can try and pick up and tackle. We're really keen to do that. So yes, I'm really proud to be involved in the launch of the Kickstart scheme, which we launched formally yesterday. It is a £2 billion fund. It is designed to tackle the issue that Alice was talking about around young people being disproportionately affected by a loss of employment. And we're aiming in the first instance for young people aged 16 to 24 claiming universal credit and at risk of long-term unemployment. We in DWP, we use the term scarring, which I suspect Alice will recognise, but it just means groups who are particularly badly affected by recession or any other economic problem. So we are funding 26-week work experience placements. We're funding the young person's salary based on national minimum wage at 25 hours a week. We're also providing a sum for the employer of £1,500 to support with employability or training or other support that the young person needs. And we're providing £300 for every placement placed through an intermediary organisation, and I'll say a bit more about that in a minute. We really want employers of all sectors to be part of this. Really, really, we do. Big, small, private, public, third sector. And in the design process, we've worked quite hard on how best to do that and how best to make sure that small organisations as well as big organisations are able to come forward. So the way we've done this is, if you have 30 placements, you can bid as an individual organisation. So you're big, or you think you will have that many placements over the lifetime of the scheme, which is designed to run for a bit more than 18 months. Or if you don't have 30 placements, and we recognise that quite a lot of people won't, we're inviting you to group together, perhaps through an intermediary organisation such as a Chamber of Commerce or a local authority or a council or a LEP. And we've had quite a lot of conversations, I think, particularly with the local councils and the Chambers of Commerce, and there is a lot of enthusiasm and desire to work with local employers and come forward and build partnerships and act in concert to offer these places. For anybody who doesn't know who to partner with in their local area, the Job Centre network is ready and willing and dead keen to start partnering people up and joining them up with their local intermediaries. So I'm conscious, and it would be good to get feedback on this one. I'm conscious that this is an issue that lots of people are interested in, and we are really keen to make it work. If it doesn't work, we want to hear about it, and we will certainly want to look at what we can do to make things work more effectively. But the message for today really is we're really proud of Kickstart. We think it's a really fantastic opportunity to help young people get their foot on the ladder and gain some really important employability skills that will set them up for the future. And we really want all types of employers to be part of it. So thanks, Deborah.
Thank you, Katie. And Tina, I think that probably answers your question about how do businesses get involved and offer placements. There's a question actually, Katie, that's just come in from Julie. It's saying, who do you know who to speak to at Job Centre Plus? Is there any particular sort of port of call that that employers should go to?
Yeah, great question. So we have on the gov.uk site, there is a whole load of pages about Kickstart. We've tried to keep them pretty simple and high level. And in there is a link. It might say something like, how do I apply, or what if I want to join up with other people locally? And then there are email addresses for all of our regional teams. It's a Kickstart mailbox, so there'll be a Kickstart mailbox for the Southwest or whatever. And if you drop an email to that mailbox, you will get a phone call, and it will be our local partnership manager who are all lined up and all really keen to make Kickstart a success and to help businesses join up with others and join up with intermediaries in that area.
Great, thanks, Katie. And it's obviously a hot topic because the inbox is going very busy. Jessica, in terms of the unnecessary barriers and bureaucracy, we'll perhaps come back to that. And Tim, again, we'll come back to that once we've heard from the other speakers in terms of apprentices and how you potentially can move people around or not. So from that then, Katie, thank you so much. We'll move to James Uffingdale from Bright Network. And James is going to give us a bit of an overview of the impact of COVID-19 on young people. So James, over to you.
Great, thanks, Deborah, and yeah, huge congratulations to kind of Katie and the team at DWP for getting Kickstarter launched. I think it's an absolutely kind of fantastic program, and just brilliant to see that initiative. A bit of background on us. So Bright Network, we started it in 2013 with a mission to build the workforce of tomorrow. We kind of spotted that talent was everywhere, an opportunity wasn't. And we've raised about 8 million in venture capital to kind of pursue that mission around using kind of data and technology. So we've got a network of about 350,000 kind of graduates and young people. And then on the other side, it's all a free service for them. And on the side, we work with about 300 employers. The network is incredibly diverse. So it's 45% BAME students, 15% Black, 80% state educated, 30% STEM. We've had about 4 million visits to the platform, and using our kind of data, we've got about 30 million data points, we're able to get really precise information. So what I think I'm going to talk about in my section is the economic impact on young people, and then how they've responded and how they're feeling, and then finally, most importantly, how we can all support them through the crisis. So in terms of obviously the immediate economic impact, we all know we've got looking like the worst recession since records begun. We've got a 20.4% contraction in GDP, and our drop is looking like one of the worst of the OECD countries. We've got kind of, I think it's like 9.6 million on furlough, and the data from the IFS shows, to the point there about scarring, in the last 3 recessions, unemployment amongst young people was up about 4 percentage points. They are disproportionately impacted. But then, interestingly, a year after, employment is about 7 percentage points lower for young people. So we do know the damage that this can have. So we are definitely facing a severe situation here. So how have they responded? So we get a lot of data, obviously, out of Bright Network. I think the one key word I'd say is shaken. So 63% of our members saw a change in application. So either an application for a job or an internship cancelled or a job offer withdrawn. So 63%, obviously a huge number. Secondly, we saw a collapse in confidence. So we have a confidence index. We're measuring the confidence of the 2020 graduates. In January, so in January, obviously before COVID-19 hit, 57% of our members were confident about getting a job. That collapsed to 33% at the end of kind of March going into April. There's been a slight uplift to 37% now, but obviously overall a huge kind of dent in confidence. 90% of young people are finding it more difficult to communicate and connect with employers, and 56% feel they're not getting enough information from employers about their hiring plans. And they are putting more effort into applications. There's been 71% telling us that they are putting more effort into applications. And again, not to bombard you with statistics, but 45% are feel it's going to take about 2 to 3 years to recover. And also this is particularly hitting kind of applicants from diverse backgrounds. So we've got now 47% of Black students are feeling that their backgrounds have hindered them at some point in an application. So young people are very shaken by what is happening. So then I think to the kind of final point, kind of the optimism hopefully, and how we can move forward, what can be done. So in April we could see this problem evolving. At Bright Network we built a national coalition, which was great to have the CBI as part of, and we had over 120 organisations, everybody from our employers like Amazon and Google and UK Parliament, and all the employers we work with, and then big trade organisations like CBI and Tech UK. We had about 40 career services, and we delivered essentially 3-day virtual internship experiences. We had 120,000 applications for that, and we delivered 1 million hours of online learning. So it was great to see that thirst for employment and skills, and that ties into that statistic, which is that and that kind of thirst for students wanting to know about the world of work. So I think the 3 things that we can all do as SME owners, as entrepreneur, Bright Networks, and it's about 35 people here. What can we do? I think these are 3 things we can do. I think firstly, that education point around the world of work. Everybody has had interactions with young people. We're very aware, obviously, that a lot of SMEs are in distress situations themselves, but educating students about the world of work and trying to shift perception. So students, interestingly, think the most important thing with their employability skills is getting good academic results. Then it's experience, then it's communication skills. But if you talk to employers, they don't even put academics as a top 3. They rank it as communication skills, passion for the business, and then problem solving. So really communicating to students about what actually matters in terms of employability, I think, is important. Second is contacts. So 21% of students feel the biggest thing that's holding them back is a lack of contact. So just reaching out, having those conversations, offering those kind of coffees, offering introductions, just introducing people. So if you think in terms of diversity, why often students from kind of well-connected or professional families get ahead, they have a network around them that is curating their career journey. So if you can do that for the young people you come across, and you see and kind of make those introductions, connections around the world of work, that's really, really powerful. And the third thing we can all do is work experience and obviously paid internships, because obviously unpaid internships are obviously illegal. So work experience, so genuine work experience, or paid internships, because 22% of students feel that lack of experience is holding them back, and that really boosts their CV, so in terms of future employability, and then also their confidence. So those would be the 3 tips from me. But I think it's great to see webinars like this happening, and I think hopefully the recovery will come. And I think optimism as well. I think giving students optimism is a really important factor.
I think also maybe getting work-related learning back on the curriculum would be a helpful. Was it 2010 that it came off?
Yeah, I think
I would be
that's hard for SMEs maybe, because but I think as a policy point, absolutely. So actually kind of maybe writing to MPs, putting kind of pressure on government to see more of that would be absolutely fantastic. And some universities are now encouragingly starting to build it into the kind of curriculum. So yeah, definitely some more to be done there.
Great, thank you, James. Thank you. There's a couple of questions come in regarding the different training that's been offered. So perhaps it would be useful if you could, we can follow up with you on that, Julie. So we'll make sure we'll follow up on that point with James. Anna, with the great surname. Good to bring you in now. So Anna Fraser is Head of Employment Engagement at the Careers and Enterprise Company. So Anna is going to give us a bit of an overview of the activities that she's involved with. So over to you, Anna.
I love the intro. Thank you so much. Can you hear me okay? Okay, I'm hoping you can hear me okay.
Yes, sorry, we can.
Brilliant, thank you so much. So brilliant to be here, thank you so much, and particularly James, that was a really useful segue into what I want to talk about. So just briefly about the Careers and Enterprise Company for those that aren't familiar with us. So we essentially provide the mechanism to connect with schools and colleges across England. So think of us as that network on the ground that can help you to get your foot in the door with those schools and colleges. We're fully funded by the Department for Education, and we work really closely with the local enterprise partnerships around the country. So with those teams, we partner with them and have teams in place, enterprise coordinators who are on the ground. And so when I talk about the mechanism, I'm very much speaking to those enterprise coordinators and hub leads, if there's a careers hub in your area, who know their patch, know the schools and colleges well, and work very closely with stakeholders, particularly the schools and colleges, but also employers, to direct your efforts where they're very much needed and welcomed and valued. We work with micro businesses, self-employed, and they make up a really important proportion of the volunteers that we're engaging to support young people in secondary schools and colleges. So that enthusiasm and that engagement is so welcome. And we partner with the CBI and are working with regional directors to provide data. And I mean, James mentioned the data. We're increasingly data driven. So we have a tool that schools use to self-assess themselves against the Gatsby benchmarks of career excellence. Some of you will be familiar with the Gatsby benchmarks. And what that means from an employer point of view is that we can understand where the gaps are. So we can see, well, actually, you know, in many cases, it might be that there are employer encounters happening. So it might be that benchmark 5 looks okay, but actually it's the workplace experiences. So again, speaking to James's point, it's the work.
Sorry, Katie. Sorry, Anna, we're getting a little bit of background feedback on yourself. Alice, what I might do is be really
tends to be a little lower, and so we can provide that kind of data at a local level. That could...
Robin, I think we might have to put Anna on mute. And Alice, I'm going to be really mean and ask you to sort of maybe pick up a little bit of the sort of support and services that are provided by the Careers and Enterprise Company, and perhaps just give us a sort of 1-minute canter through that before we head over to Josh.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I can try, but I'm sure Anna's will be much more detailed. I think what I could probably do is talk us through some of the plans that we originally had with the CEC, which Anna might have come on to talk about, stuff that unfortunately got kind of put on ice a little bit back in March because of coronavirus. But we've been working really closely with the CEC since their inception. Obviously, Anna mentioned there the Gatsby benchmarks, and one of the kind of key things that we've been working on the past couple of years is trying to kind of broaden that business engagement piece, you know, so it's about doing the work experience places, the employer encounters in classrooms, but also getting employees more involved in school governance, and sort of teacher leadership training as well. So like, what are the kind of opportunities other than just providing work experience and employee encounters that business can contribute to the education system? And we had a really exciting project which we're hoping to launch early next year now, called Step Up for Schools. If you might have heard of it if you've been involved in it before. So it'll be a kind of employer platform where using data from the Careers and Enterprise Company and our own kind of mapping across the regions and the CBI networks, we're going to be basically profiling members across all the different regions in England, where employers can kind of get involved at a really local school level. So that might be you know, having sort of science fairs, so having some employees go along to those. It could be kind of career interview days at schools, or business breakfasts. I know are quite popular among some schools. So basically what will happen is that all those opportunities will kind of be profiled on the site. So employers will be able to kind of go on and think, oh, well, you know, if I'm in the Southwest, these are the kind of things happening in my area. I think as an employer, we've got an opportunity to kind of contribute to those. Still in the process of working out what that looks like, actually, and I was hoping Anna would kind of come on to talking about more of the kind of like virtual elements of how careers advice could operate, because I know that obviously with schools going back now, but things are going to be probably looking quite different, and the way that employees interact with school children might be very different as well. So keep an eye out basically for our Step Up for Schools work, which, as I said, should hopefully be kind of starting again in the new year, once employers, I guess, have a little bit more of an idea about what's going to be happening in the autumn, and schools kind of got their feet on the ground a little bit more. So I hope to back to Anna, because I think she's got some interesting stuff to say around the virtual encounters piece, but she might be still having issues.
Yeah, Anna, is there anything that you were able to fill in on those gaps before, or is the signal still not so great?
Hopefully you can hear me okay now.
Yeah.
Alice, great job, thank you. Really appreciate it. I think, yeah, essentially, we know that it's turbulent with schools and colleges, but I think one of the points I want to make is don't let that put you off. So we've had really strong engagement with careers leaders in lockdown. So careers leaders are within the teaching staff, and they're often on the senior team, and they've been engaging really strongly with creating their plans for this academic year. So don't be put off, your efforts are needed, and I think absolutely we can for schools when that comes out, but in the meantime you can always use the network that exists right now, and I'd encourage you to look at the Give an Hour website, and we'll be sending the link around following this webinar, where you can register your interest and be introduced to your local team. And yes, we're very much looking forward to the Step Up for Schools platform being made available as well, to profile to members exactly how you can support your local areas. From a virtual point of view, we've seen employers pivot absolutely brilliantly throughout lockdown, and we've got some examples that we can share. Particularly, I think one of the first off the block to switch their work experience from a face-to-face experience to virtual, and really not just relying on pre-recorded materials, but very much looking to create and replicate that sort of face-to-face experience, group working, team working and collaboration, with guidance and steering from volunteers from Morgan Sindall. And in fact, the feedback that we received there was the engagement from the pupils was really encouraging, and in fact it's in many ways stronger than the engagement they were seeing in face-to-face experiences. So we've seen some great benefits coming through there, and in fact employees as well. I think this was particularly from the NHS at Norfolk and Norwich University hospitals, who were saying that this works very well for their employees to be able to deliver and support workplace experiences virtually, because it frankly time out of their diaries able to contribute that high quality experience. And from that quality point of view, I think many of the same rules apply. So we have a framework that we can share with you called Making It Meaningful, and that speaks to the importance of that pre-work and the follow-up work, and how that can really help to embed these experiences well with young people. That applies in the virtual world just as it would in a face-to-face experience. I would say, yeah, do take a look at virtual as a great option, and we think that will continue going forward.
Great, thanks, Anna. I'm sorry, you started to break up a little bit, so apologies for me jumping in there. Right, we're going to dash over to Josh, who is also a voice coming in, and then what we'll do is try and whiz through some of the questions. I can see from the numbers coming in, we're not going to be able to get through them all, but we will absolutely take these away and come back to you. So Josh, quickly handing over to you, and Josh is going to talk us through some of what he's hearing from young people.
Hi everyone, can you hear me okay? Lovely, thank you for having me today. So Youth Employment UK is an independent non-profit enterprise founded in 2012 to tackle youth employment, and we are really experts in youth employment and unemployment, and ideally placed to understand the complex landscape facing young people, employers and policymakers. So some of the active things that we're doing is giving young people a voice and a platform to really talk about the issues affecting them. We support young people with skills and career support they need to progress further, and supporting employers to develop and be recognised as youth-friendly employers with youth-friendly employment practice, and providing expert insight into youth employment policy areas. So some of the things we're hearing from young people right now, and we've got a network of ambassadors of young people 14 to 24, and we also do something annually called the Youth Voice Census. So this information I'm about to give you is kind of a combination of both. So one of the major things affecting young people is their mental health, well-being and confidence. So we found that those suffering from anxiety and depression has increased on last year. 17% included mental health issues within their top 5 barriers to entering work. So whilst happiness scores are higher for those in work, and we see a rise in mental health and wellbeing issues for young people following them into the workplace though. So 33% of respondents struggled with wellbeing at work, and this is up 12 percentage points on last year. Young people's confidence is also plummeting, confidence in finding work is decreasing, and the number of young people suffering with wellbeing in work is on the rise. And young people believe they will face additional barriers, including lack of work experience and not knowing what skills they need. So this anxiety is really gaining momentum here. We also found that it's young people talk about having a confusing landscape, and they're unsure of the opportunities and pathways, and they're unclear about their future, and they don't think that employers want them. So 25% rated having the right skills within the top 5 barriers. And a direct quote from the Youth Voice census is there's so much stigma around young people in the workplace. People do not think they are well equipped. So only 31% thought employers were supportive, very supportive of hiring young people, and only 13% are very or extremely confident of finding meaningful quality work in their area. Those in school repeatedly said that more information and pathways was needed. Young people really value face-to-face support and individualised support. So the key improvement on careers education that young people reference time and time again, this has been from our 2018, 2019 and 2020 census, is that they want personalised one-to-one support. So notably, wherever they were given the opportunity to share their opinions, they kind of told us that they needed one-to-one support to navigate their skills, think about their next options and access work. And finally, access to work experience and network. So it kind of builds on what we've said so far. So 45% said they lacked the work experience, and that was also placed within their top 5 barriers. And young people told us that more needs to be done to make work experience and opportunities to learn of the working world more available beyond secondary school. And this needs to be quality work. Another direct quote is that the options they were sort of given were shelf stacking. And we have a young ambassador as well who's actually got a law degree. And whilst he's been trying to get into that through his entire time at school, his workplace experience were based on a barber shop. And I believe, again, it was working a retail of some kind. So it was just not connected. Despite him saying that those were his career aspirations, they weren't connected up with that. So some of the things that we're doing to help young people. So we've got some products and services. The main is our online digital platform. So we have a skills and careers hub. So this is designed with, so it's co-created and for young people to access content. And it provides more than 100,000 young people every month with the support they need. And we've also got a young professional journey to work program. So this is a 3 CPD program, supports 14 to 24-year-olds and with practical advice and training to help them navigate their skills and the world of work. And finally, Youth Voice is central to everything we do, anything policy-wise, any of the stuff we're creating with youth-friendly employers is all informed by our young people and our youth ambassador board. So we amplify and champion what they're saying and really sort of giving them the chance to say what's not working for them and what is. So we try and do this through active participation, surveys, forums, workshops, and like I say, with our youth ambassador board. So we also champion youth-friendly employers. So this is recognising that these organisations are committed to good youth employment charter. Our youth-friendly badge shows you that you are working towards making organisations a place where young people can thrive. So we offer strategic support and a range of pre-employment and employment services to help build, refine and benchmark what youth employment strategy should be. And we sort of hold down the line of policy experts to understanding what works and getting it done. So a unique view of the youth employment landscape, offering insight and recommendations on how best to support young people. We're also secretariat for the APPG for youth employment, and we've done that since 2015. So recognising youth-friendly employers, the Good Youth Employment Charter was developed in collaboration with a range of youth employment experts and young people. It provides a framework to support and inspire and recognise organisations who are committed to providing good quality options for young people. So you can sign up to this by registering with the Youth Friendly Employer badge on our website. So the principles are creating opportunity, recognising talent, fair employment, developing people, and youth voice. So you can download this badge, you can put it on your website and sort of all your engagement activities. And it's to sort of, you get listed on a database, and we really feed young people into these youth-friendly employers. Some of the work we're doing with the Greater Manchester Combined Authority, they've developed a responsibility for local education employment training. And in the summer of 2020, Andy Burnham, Mayor of Greater Manchester, launched a Youth Guarantee Task Force. And we have been appointed a strategic partner to the task force in order to provide expert insight, guidance, and project management. So just before I sort of finish off, I would really kind of say, if you can have a read of our Youth Voice Sensors, there's so much valuable information in there. And I can sort of share a link at the end with Diane to sort of get that through to everyone. And if you could explore our policy and research, well, that would be great. There's lots of sort of stories from our youth ambassadors that really tell their tale of trying to get into employment and the problems that they face. So thank you very much for having me, and I'll pass back to you guys.
Thanks, Josh. Thank you. I think that those points on work experience is really important. But I do sometimes think that the sort of work experience when you're sort of 14 is, and actually it being a horrible experience. Mine was awful. I came back to school and changed my A-level results as a result. So I'm so glad I had that awful work experience because otherwise I might have gone and done something stupid. There's loads of questions come in, and we're not going to be able to get through them all, but what I do promise is we will come back to every single one of you individually with the sort of follow-up. But Katie, there's a lot come through on Kickstart, so I'm going to come to you with perhaps some of those. First of all, I think you've said what your sort of share contact details of the Job Centre Plus, also keen for details on local authorities. There's a lot of questions around what's the rationale for the 30 placement cutoff. There are people wanting to start now and they're having to wait for these intermediary places right at the moment. And did we pick up correctly that you can have 30 placements over an 18-month period? Was that something? Could you just clarify that piece? So I suppose rationale for the 30. What about people who are wanting to start now but are having to wait for an intermediary, and sort of what flexibility is there on number of placements over the sort of lifetime of the programme?
Thanks. Let me do the last one first. So yes, 30 placements over the lifetime of the programme, absolutely right. So if you're a business who thinks we've got 10 now and 10 in 6 months' time and then another 10 3 months after that, we would allow for that, and we would welcome that. And I think we'd recognise that might work for some people. The rationale for 30 was trying to respect that for some small businesses, you might want to take 1 or 2 people, but you wouldn't have the wherewithal necessarily to want to provide all of the support that young people will need on this scheme, whether that's training or employability support or setup support. So to try and pull them together into a sensible grouping where you would have enough of a volume that you could do those things at scale, whether that's by asking your intermediary to do it on your behalf, or by grouping together. So that was the rationale. In designing Kickstart, lots of you may have come across before something called the Future Jobs Fund, which was run about 10 years ago. And Kickstart is not the same as the Future Jobs Fund, but what we've tried to do is learn from the best bits of it and change the things that didn't work. So Future Jobs Fund, I think, was pretty good in terms of getting public sector jobs, not so good in getting private sector jobs. But one of the things that it did do is it went through local authorities as umbrella organisations in groups of about 30 placements, and that was seen to work well at that time. So that's one of the things we've looked at, and we've also just tried to make sense of what would be a sensible grouping, what would hopefully take away the burden for small businesses of having to apply for this sort of scheme and get money and report back to us and all that sort of thing. So that's the rationale. I should say every single bit of the Kickstart scheme we will be looking at quite carefully. We stood it up in a simple form, partly because we want to get going as quickly as we can, and partly because we don't want to create unnecessary burdens or unnecessary bureaucracy. But if there are bits of it that seem to be difficult and we think we need to change as we go, then we absolutely will want to do that.
Right.
I have a colleague on the phone, Geraint Williams, who is here from my job centre network. I don't know if he has to be unmuted or if there's a way of bringing him in, because he may also want to add.
Yeah, I'm just looking at time actually, Katie, and we're fast running out of time. But what would be great is if we could get some further sort of further comments on that. I think there's a particular piece, and I've had it a couple of times come in, is is that we do need to get those messages out around those intermediaries, because there's lots of businesses who are sort of messaging in, not sure how they can get involved directly. So that those links at Job Centre Plus and local authorities and the Chamber are going to be critical. There's quite a number of questions around apprentices, and actually companies saying, look, I'm about to make my apprentice redundant, and they're going to then become part of the Kickstart scheme. So actually, can we move people around between firms? So what support is there for our existing apprentices? That's probably a separate question which we'll pick up separately, because actually the Kickstart scheme isn't designed for those in apprenticeships. They're designed for those probably hardest, furthest from the labour market more. Questions around Wales and whether there's eligibility for the devolved nations, which again we'll pick up. And there's some really lovely questions actually around how we marketing to young people directly to give them hope. So I think that's something we'll feedback and pick up with Katie and the DWP team. In terms of just wrapping things up, then we will be putting all this stuff onto our website, and we'll do a follow-up email to this. Well, I say we, Diane and Simon will be doing that, and we'll get that up onto the Coronavirus Hub on the CBI website. Do also have a look at, well, if you're CBI members, you can. If you're not CBI members, it's going to be a little bit more tricky. We've just recently launched the UK Transition Hub, looking at Brexit and how to get you ready for as much as you can do in terms of getting ready for Brexit. This session will be recorded, so you can see it again. And finally, we'll be back in 2 weeks. Well, I won't, because I'm going to be on holiday. I'll be in Cornwall. We're back in 2 weeks looking at innovation and access to support that's available. So I would really recommend tuning in for that, because that's going to be a really practical session around what support's available, what grants, what loans, what partnerships are available. And that's going to be chaired by Felicity Birch, our fantastic Director of Innovation. But that's it from me for now. Just finally to say thank you so much to our speakers. Alice, delightful to see you. Hope to see you again soon. Miss you lots. Also to Katie and the DWP team, James from Bright Network, Anna Fraser from the Careers and Enterprise Company, and Josh from Youth Employment UK. But take care, and I'll see you in 4 weeks then. Take care. Bye-bye.